Hello and welcome to a new episode of our program, The World Today, where we take you across the globe and we follow up on the banners and what's heading the local, regional, international newspapers, what's happening across the world. Of course, the past 24 hours have been very crucial, a lot of updates and very serious events taking place in different areas and parts of the world, namely in Turkey and Berlin in Germany. So we will definitely be covering up on that and what the world press says or has to say about these very tragic events and much more. I'm Yasmin Bakir and I'm very pleased to be joined in the studio this afternoon with Sama Eissa, who is an international law expert. Thank you very much for joining us. Allow us please to start with the Ahram Online and we take a look at the article there that discusses 12 people dead in a probable terrorist attacks in Berlin Christmas market, according to German police. Of course, in the late hours yesterday evening, there have been news reports and live coverage from Berlin's Christmas market talking about a van or a truck that has passed by people inside the Christmas market and had killed at least 12 people and injured at least 50 up until a couple of hours ago's estimates. And according to German police on Tuesday, they were treating a probable terrorist attack, and they talked about the police who have also detained a man who is believed to be deliberately crashing people by using a heavy vehicle loaded with steel beams into a festive market in the area that is very popular with tourists near the capital's iconic memorial church. A man behind the wheel was an asylum seeker believed to be from an Afghani or a Pakistani national, and he had arrived in Germany in February, according to security forces reports. How do you see that, Sama? I mean, it's not the first wave of terrorism attacks that takes place in that part of Europe, especially France, and it did happen before in Germany. But now the timing, also another similar event took place earlier in Turkey. We'll discuss that later. But how do you read this news concerning the attacks in Berlin?
First of all, it's not the first time, as you said, that it happened. The same happened in Nice earlier in France. And we can't solely blame it on security because they go with the van inside the masses, but you can blame that it should be watched before it's happening. For instance, this person, they should have been informed, like the FBI, the CIA, wherever within this arena investigation, they should be able to predict the incident before it happens. However, how I see this news after that the cause is already having its impact, that it will weaken Merkel's position since she's welcoming immigrants and Syrians and all other people from other countries into Germany, and it's going to increase the racism against Muslims in Germany and all the racist accusations going to accumulate after this event especially. So if anything, it's weakening the president's position and her claims and her support for immigrants.
Yes.
This is the downfall. But on the positive hand side, if anything, how I read the news, it's telling us that the end of Daesh is near. Because, as you said earlier, other events are happening in a very short time span in different European countries. So they're trying to prove their presence because they're feeling that their end is near. They're trying to do anything, any major impact before they're coming to abolish themselves completely from the scene.
Now, I need to discuss two issues with you here. The first one, I mean, maybe the fact that Daesh hasn't yet publicly announced its responsibility for these attacks, but according to Germany, they are relating it to asylum seekers and migrant issues, although that is a very critical status because of the result of what happened in Syria and Libya, and many illegal immigrants who have been fleeing to Europe has caused a lot of disturbance, and it always seems to be that one of these asylum seekers or illegal migrants are behind such attacks, which again is very sad because you would want to wonder, and that's my second part of the question, who is behind their brainwash, who's training them, who is leading them, using them as a tool to commit such very well and organized plots, because as you said, security is very tight in Europe. But to just have a man in a truck who most likely he could be hijacking just change his path and decide to hit people is also very strange in Europe.
The thing is, you can't control the suicide itself. The fact that the bomber who places the bomb and run away, this you can blame on security. But when someone goes and bombs themselves willingly among masses, this is something you can't solely blame on security. Because in the end of the day, he sacrificed himself for his foolish act.
Yeah.
They brainwash young youth who are illiterate, who is not well educated, who are looking for someone to go for. If you check the profiles of all the criminals,
they're very young, they're 22,
exactly, and they tell you
23.
we had no one to turn for. They gave us shelter, they gave us money, they gave us food, they gave us like a second family. So they start to have loyalty for
And
them.
they gave us assurance that we're going to go to heaven straight if we do
Exactly.
something.
So they brainwash the illiterate and the ones who are not well educated.
We move to another story again, what happened yesterday. Of course, yesterday was very strange indeed. It seems like December is not ending with so much already happening. In the World Bulletin, two incidents happened in Turkey yesterday. One was the shooting, of course, of the Russian ambassador by a Turkish policeman eventually. And another one, a man who was shooting into air bullets in front of the U.S. embassy, also in Ankara. So the man fired a few rounds of rifle into the air in front of the American embassy early on Tuesday, hours after the Russian ambassador to Turkey was actually assassinated in Ankara. Authorities said that Shaheen S. had approached the embassy in Ankara's district, in a district in Ankara, and fired 8 to 9 times with a rifle which he had hidden inside his coat. Of course, he was taken into custody, and an investigation is still underway. According to police, he said that extraordinary security measures have been taken around the area. Right before that, the late hours of Monday, Russian envoy, or it wasn't Monday, it was Sunday.
Monday.
Well, it was Monday, yes, these days even taking so much, it seems longer than 24 hours. Russian envoy Andrei Karlov was killed in an art exhibition in another district, also in Ankara, on Monday, when a gunman had opened fire that targeted the diplomat before shooting into the air. And eventually, according to the Anadolu agency, he was a Turkish policeman. And the sad news is that this was actually caught live on television, and it's been rotating around social media ever since then. That is another new tactic of terrorism, you know, infiltration into very sensitive positions and in sensitive fields in a country. And this man was actually supposed to be taking care of him and guarding him, and it ended up that he's actually the one who's responsible for assassinating him, which again is another shockwave and a change in ideology or perception of what terrorism could be like.
Well, concerning this point, precisely, it shouldn't take us by surprise for various reasons. First, when the fake coup that happened, when after time passed, we investigated the real reasons behind it, it's because within the army and the police of Turkey, they have mix-up ideologies. Because in the beginning of the presidency, he made allies with Oglu. And then those Oglu's people, the supporters, are very strict and extremist. And they are part of the army and the police. That's why he faked the coup, to take it as an excuse to get rid of those people out of the scene, out of the political scene and out of the army and out of the police. So now when we find out that his security, that is a policeman, is going and doing a great part in his assassination and assassinating him, shouldn't take us by surprise, because the army and the police in Turkey, it's not like the Egyptian army, like one man's heart. No, they have mixes within them, because they have this alliance and under-table deals in order to get to where they are. And they had been efforts been done with the fake coup to get rid of them, but the root cause itself is still there. So this is one side. The other side for what's happening, recently Turkey backed off and started taking Russia's side for what's happening in Syria. And they stopped funding and backing up the terrorist groups that are in Syria and in Halab. So it makes perfect sense that they see this as a revenge. So you stop backing us up, stop funding us up, so as a revenge we're going to assassinate the Turkish ambassador.
And speaking of surprise, how did you read the response, the official response from Russia towards what happened in Turkey? When Putin spoke, President Putin of Russia spoke of that this is a kind of an act that is aimed at mending the ties between Turkey and Russia, which are strong. Was that really something, or such a statement, did you expect to come up from Russia after, in response for this incident, or did you expect a much more firmer response and more serious actions to be taken on the political level, on the diplomatic level between Russia and Turkey?
Putin is a very wise man and he knows what he's doing, and this is a very wise response, because if he acted differently, he would be falling into the trap which the terrorist group are setting up for him, because the whole idea behind this is tearing up the ties that suddenly Turkey is backing up Syria in their Russia in their position with Syria. So if all of this fails,
which don't you think that the position of Russia and Turkey are very different?
Exactly, that's why they feel it's a revenge. That's why they're assassinating the ambassador. They feel it's a revenge. It's like a backstab for them. After they've been funding and supporting them, suddenly they're taking Russia's side because Bashar is winning grounds and it's coming to an end in Syria. So they saw it as a revenge.
Yes.
So,
and we're going to move to another forum, which is the Independent. They're all related, speaking of also the international responses towards what happened in Turkey. And a lot of analysts have actually been saying this is actually the start or a trigger to what could be an unfortunate third world war. And they said that Syria is actually the key word, you know, or the magic word, as they would say. Then the Independent speaks of, according to the Berlin attacks, also not just on Turkey, Donald Trump blames ISIS and says that they must be eradicated from the face of earth. Of course, we do know that we're only a couple of days away before Republican U.S. New President Donald Trump enters the office or the White House. And he has already been issuing a number of statements and a number of decisions in mixed fields and in different agendas that are already triggering different parts of the world. Regarding the incident of Berlin, German officials have not confirmed the motivation behind the incident and have urged caution of how it's described. However, President-elect Donald Trump had condemned the attack in Berlin and the incident, and he did say that these people have been arrested, should be taken or being held responsible or claimed responsible, and that according to the title of this article, he is blaming ISIS, and that he does seem to have a plan which is very different than the Democrats' Obama's plans or agenda towards Daesh during the past 8 years. Of course, you do know that many analysts were speaking of the possibility or the confirmation actually of Obama's administration creating or establishing Daesh to serve their own agendas. Are we really going to see Donald Trump having a different agenda against Daesh, or is this just all a press game and then at the end it's always the agenda that's set for you know, the United States towards its foreign policy in general, whoever
I don't think with Trump. I don't think with Trump. First, because of his personal profile. He comes from a very well-established family who knows his impact within the economy system, economic system, within the United States and different other countries. So he's a weighty man in terms of his personal profile. And the statement that you've just read that he's saying about ISIS is very promising. You said that December is a very sad month, but for me, on the other side, I'm very optimistic because all those awkward, very short span of time terrorist attacks prove us that the end of Daesh is very near, and it's being proven by these actions. If anything, Trump's statement is making me feeling more optimistic that he's not going to be backing up terrorism unlike Obama, and he's going to take a different lane. This is one, because maybe he's starting to get the rationale that wherever they start creating comes back and bite them. So maybe they need to stop creating something and then it grows so big that in the end that goes out of the control from the creator itself, which is the United States. So I think that Trump is definitely having a different agenda, and his statement is very positive, and how I'm reading the scene right now, it's actually making me feel optimistic that, like he asked and requested, actually his wishes is coming true. And this is how they speculated it, Russia and other parties that are fighting Daesh earlier, that by the end of this year they will be abolished.
Yeah, so we'll still have at least 10 days before Christmas, before December ends, and we'll have to see what happens. But of course, we are trying to be optimistic because anything that happens in the world has become a very small place. So anything that happens anywhere is affecting everybody, and terrorism is an unacceptable act by all means. Thank you very much, Sama Eissa, international law expert, for joining us on The World Today for your very important edition. And analysis, of course, to these articles. And this brings us to the end of The World Today. Thank you very much for watching.